Now, with respect to these 5 issues, I will start off with the fact that in January of 2005, I was sworn in after being, laid off of Congress work for 2 years. But what was the big issue in January of 2005? It was the 2004 election and what had happened in Ohio. And all we needed was one senator, remember, and one member of Congress, of course, a member of the House, and of course there were many of us in the House who were committed to objecting to the Ohio electors, but we couldn't find but one senator. But in January 2005, Barack Obama had been sworn into the United States Senate. So given what the entire country saw took place in Ohio in November of 2004, one would have thought that we would have been able to get that 2 hours of debate because Barack Obama would have objected to those Ohio electors. It didn't happen. It was Barbara Boxer who did. And in the process, she informed us that it was Al Gore who had asked her not to do it in 2000, and that she regretted not having done it in 2000 in the face of all of the crimes that had been committed in Florida in 2000, but she remained silent because Al Gore had asked her to. So here we have a situation where in 2000, the Democratic Party had a solution to demand its right to the White House, but it chose not to in 2000, where we had 1 million black people cast their votes, and their votes weren't even counted. That doesn't even count the ones who went to the polls and tried to vote and were never able to actually cast a vote. And the Democrats, all they had to do was to say, okay, we want a recount of Florida, or we want to go and look at all of these undervotes is what they're called. And that didn't happen. Criminal activity took place in Florida, and nobody was punished. Sounds about like what's going on now with the Democrats taking impeachment off the table. So one, I would say, remaining silent in the face of clear disfranchisement on the part of the black community in this country. I have not done that, investigated. But for those of you, Marcus, if you have not yet seen American Blackout, I would recommend that you view American Blackout, which is available on Google Video. It's available on YouTube in sections, and it's also available in Netflix. And since you have a bookstore, you really ought to have a copy of American Blackout as well. And if you don't, then you can contact me later, and we'll see about getting you some there at the bookstore. That would be Cynthia at runcynthiarun.org. Number 2, people have viewed my exchange with Donald Rumsfeld, and they think, oh my goodness, that's why she's not in office. Well, the reason the exchange with Donald Rumsfeld, asking tough questions of people who are in tough positions, who make tough decisions that impact all of us, is a responsibility of those of us who have been elected to office. And so I not only did that to Donald Rumsfeld, I did it to Madeleine Albright and Colin Powell and Michael Chertoff. You can see me asking Michael Chertoff, why is he not been brought up on negligent homicide charges if they dared to bring up people who failed to rescue people in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina on negligent homicide charges? Why shouldn't he also be subject to the same type of justice? And you won't see that kind of questioning from the presumptive Democratic nominee. And that is, honestly, a part of the problem of why we're here in this predicament that we're in now. Number 3, support for the war. whenever there was an opportunity to vote against the Pentagon budget, I always did it. Not just for 1 year or 2 years, but the entire 12 years that I was in Congress, I voted no on Pentagon spending. I thought it was terrible that we would spend $500 billion every year, and children would go to bed hungry at night in this country. People would work 40 hours a week and still live below the poverty line. I thought that putting money into the Pentagon was something that we should not do, particularly when the Pentagon was not keeping track of that money, and in fact even admitted that it had lost, quote, lost $2.3 trillion. And that $500 billion that we spend every year is over and above any expenditures for war. So the third reason is that I support a budget that satisfies human needs and not corporate greed. And I have never voted to fund that war and occupation. The Democratic presumptive nominee can't say that. With respect to single-payer health care system, which is what the health care professionals would prefer that our country adopt, and what grassroots Democratic Party activists support. But the Democratic Party, being beholden to the insurance industry, has decided that it is incapable of delivering to its own activists, to the American people, and to the healthcare professionals what they want and deserve. Now, why do I say they deserve it? Because in this country, we spend more for health care than any other country on the planet. But guess what? We're 42nd in the world in life expectancy, 48th for infant mortality. Maternal mortality, that is when the mother dies in the process of childbirth, is in some communities like those of lesser developed countries. And so we don't get the health care outcomes that we deserve for the money that we put in. We need a different delivery system. In 2005, Dr. David Satcher found that 80,000 black people died for no other reason than that they were black. After they got into the doctor's office, they got a disparate level of care. They weren't provided the pain medication. They weren't given the transplant. They weren't provided the quality of care that their white counterparts received. And that resulted in over 80,000 black people dying. Now, I say that it is possible for us to have a public policy that eliminates all of these disparities. But we've got a Democratic presumptive nominee that won't even talk about the existence of these disparities and doesn't dare suggest that there is power within the presidency itself to address and eliminate the continuing racial disparities that we all live with on a daily basis because we're people of color in this country. That's number 4. Number 5, basically, is that the United States basically has militarized its domestic and its foreign policy. It has militarized its domestic policy by the merger of military tactics and equipment. They've even got some new equipment, they say, that they're going to roll out for this for those of us who are going up to Denver to protest. So I might see some of that special new equipment. Some police departments, I believe it's in Minnesota for the Republican convention, has provided each police officer with a taser. So now just imagine what the protesters are going to be subjected to. In Denver, they also have a special, it's called the new Gitmo, because they've got a new prison specifically dedicated to Democratic Party convention protesters. What is this? Why is it that we've got checkpoints in cities across this country? Why is it that our military is doing urban guerrilla war-fighting tactics, practice drills inside cities across this country. What is going on? Why is it that our young hip-hop people are being surveilled? What is going on? What is the threat to our national security that requires this level of military involvement in local law enforcement? It is supposed to be against the law. You haven't heard the Democratic presumptive nominee talk about this.